Today is Monday, the 17th of May, 2021, and welcome to Nuts and Bolts MMA, where you get the nuts and bolts of what's going on inside the world of MMA. I am your host, Travis Montgomery. Thank you so much for joining us. I have figured out the glitch in Apple Podcasts. So now when you type in Nuts and Bolts MMA, it will take you to our podcast. So please do that and subscribe. We are also on YouTube now. All the videos are there. At least the new ones will be. We're on Spotify, Stitcher. Please go in there and subscribe. I will greatly appreciate it. We have a nice show for you today. We will be recapping all that happened at UFC 262. We got some fight news to get to. And me, myself, I'm doing good. I had my son for an extra night this weekend. That is the most important thing to me right now, more than anything. I wish I could see him more, but I can't. We got haircuts together. We went to Kids Empire, which is finally back open. I'm so happy that this place is open. It's like a indoor playground, and they've got a bunch of foam stuff for people to, bounce around and ball pits and all that fun stuff. But now we have two guests. Well, we have co-host and a new guest joining us today. We are triangulating from Orange County, California, the 209, California, and Toronto, Canada. First, let me introduce, welcome back to the program, Sensei Rob. What's new with you? Are you still working out?
I'm still slowly and surely getting into it. I mean, it's not easy, but we're still at it. Right now we have a streak of, I believe, 8 straight days of going out and walking at least a mile or more, which doesn't sound like much, but by the end of that mile, my leg and my back are just punching me in the dick. But
but you feel like you're getting stronger?
Yeah.
Rehab?
I feel better. I feel stronger. I feel happier in general, going out and getting that sun and just going out and just doing the little bit that I can, it's doing good, feeling good.
Sweet. Monica Yip joins the program.
Hi.
She is from Toronto, like I said, and Fights Unwrapped podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
You start in MMA, and when was it?
Nice.
Sweet.
Well, do you know who John Jones was fighting in that night?
I think it was Gustafson.
Oh yeah, that's a hell of a fight. That'd make anybody a fan for sure.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. Mm-hmm.
Now let me ask you a question though. Who do you think won that fight?
I'm a huge John Jones fan. I think just from the beginning, so I definitely think he won.
Fair point. Okay.
Yeah.
That's that's the one fight I think John Jones actually lost.
Yeah.
Like out of all his fights, that's the one, like if you're gonna say he lost a fight, that's the one I look at and go, you can make the argument there. I don't think Reyes won their fight. I think John won that one.
Yeah.
And same thing with Thiago Santos and all those other close split decisions he had. But Gustafson was the one fight where he got pushed to the point where I thought if anyone could hold that crown to that claim, it would have been him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had it tied up going into the 5th round. And then I thought Gustafson did more to win the round other than that spinning back elbow, which I think won him the round for the 5th round, ultimately getting him the nod. But both of those dudes went to the hospital after that fight. It was, and
war.
And John didn't even really train for that fight too, which is kind of
scary,
kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, Monica, so glad that you are joining us today. For now, let's get to some MMA news. Paulo Costa will fight Jared Cannonier at a UFC event on August 21st. I know it seems like a long ways away, but summer is coming here really quickly, rapidly approaching. Rob, I know you have something to say about this one.
I just hope it happens. I hope they can stay healthy up until August and, come to show up. It's going to be, Paulo Costa is really good at bullying opponents and really just walking through them and just blasting them with power and, putting on a pace that a lot of guys can't match for a long period of time. And Jared Cannonier, I feel like, is a wall that forces try to run up into, and they either can or they can't. Robert Whitaker was able to get through that wall. That's Jared Cannonier, but then you get guys like Kutalaba who tried and then just failed. And I'm really curious to see what happens here, whether if Costa can break through that or if he wilts, because Cannonier is a scary kind of guy in his own way, and he's a giant dude, for 185. He used to fight at heavyweight, so he carries the type of power that Costa, I don't think, is really met yet. So it'd be very interesting, I think.
Now, I want Monique. Has anyone ever called you Monica? Because I've almost called you Monica 3 times.
That's okay. Yeah, it's common.
Has anyone ever? Is it common?
Yeah, it's very common. Yeah.
I like Monique better than Monica, but it's my dyslexic ass is I almost called you by the wrong name 3 times.
No worries.
Anyways, what do you think about this middleweight contest?
Well, I was just gonna say, how Rob says, I hope both of them stay healthy and it actually happens, because we at both times you got Paulo Costa saying that, number one, he got ill from the flu from that other fight, and then also there was when he faced, I think it was Adesanya, there was a rumor or something saying that he drank so much wine or something like that the day before. So I just hope that he stays disciplined and this fight actually happens. Jared Cannonier, for me, is so underrated as a fighter. I think a lot of people don't really focus on him much because he's not the most marketable fighter out there, but he has so much skill. And Paulo Costa, he just tries to get in your head, just like Rob says. So I hope this fight happens. I think it should be a good one. Yeah,
I think they're both kind of head cases for different reasons. Cannonier kind of believes in the power of the crystal and all that.
Yeah.
And he might be on some QAnon shit too. I'm not sure. And then Paulo Costa, like you said, making up those weird excuses for losing to Izzy, which, he was just outgunned. So I think there's kind of these are 2 kind of insane people that are huge and with big power going in. I'd be surprised if this one went the distance. Paulo Costa, I actually bet and picked Jared Cannonier to beat Robert Whitaker, and I think Robert showed me a couple more gears that I didn't think he had. So that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I don't think this fight goes to ends in a finish. I think this is actually one of those fights where you Yoel Romero and Paulo Costa. Both guys are just so durable, and I think this is one of those fights where it goes to the decision, actually.
Yeah, I liked Cannonier as a dog against Rob, but he ended up getting finished late.
He did.
Okay, let's move on now. Another big lightweight announcement fight. Islam Makhachev will fight Thiago Moises at a UFC event on July 17th. Neither one of these have a venue yet for this fight and the last fight. Thiago most recently beat Alexander Hernandez and Bobby Green. I think that he's showing some signs of, he's on the ascension, I guess. He's not on the decline. Islam Makhachev is the hottest thing right now at lightweight. Definitely would like to see him now that Charlie Olives is champion, but we will get to that in a little bit. My son is calling me right now. Rob, what do you think about this one?
Well, I'm going to do my best Brendan Schaub impression here and do my ultimate casual and just say I really don't know much about Thiago Moises to speak on it. Islam reminds me of just a younger Khabib. So I'm just going to go with my gut here and say the young Khabib is going to come out of this pretty much on top. I could be very wrong. I kind of hope I'm wrong. I would like to see a neckbeard lose here. It seems like Islam's having a hard time to get a ranked fight, a fight with a ranked opponent, and that's a byproduct of how good he probably is. You don't have guys, ducking you unless you're really good, and that's a problem. I think that's a byproduct. I think of the ranking system in general, because I think we've talked about this before, where you get guys now who are protecting their spot in the rankings and don't want to take fights against guys who are unranked or lower than them because it's just that dangerous of a fight. And if they lose that fight, they lose their spot in the rankings, which in turn can hold up an entire division. If you have enough guys doing that, like we see with welterweight. So glad to see Islam fighting, but I could definitely see him winning. I definitely see him winning for sure.
Yeah, I definitely see him winning too. I think because he's so grapple heavy, and usually with that, he does remind me of a younger version of Khabib. But the thing is that he needs more confidence in himself, because I think that he's intimidated by Khabib. He's always been intimidated by Khabib in a way, even though he has him in his corner. And once he gains that confidence, I think the sky's the limit for him. And I think with Thiago Moises, I know a little bit about him. I think his victory against Alexander Hernandez was shocked me in a good way, and because of that, I still think Islam is just going to smother him the entire time, like he does with every other opponent. And yeah, he is pretty much the hottest thing right now, just like Travis said, in the lightweight division. And how you were saying about divisions, with the ranking system, that division is so stacked right now. So if you lose one fight, it's really hard to gain a fighter who's going to be higher ranked opponent for you. So that's the thing with divisions like that, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, think about it. If Tony Ferguson never gave Charlie Olives that fight, or gave him an opportunity to have that fight, Oliveira never would have been able to jump the line to where he was able to get that title fight against Chandler. It took a guy with Tony Ferguson's spot to go, I'll give you the shot. And, it backfired on Tony, obviously, but great for Charlie Olives, and Islam just needs an RDA, a Paul Felder, one of these guys to say, I'll give you that fight. And then at that point, it's going to be you can't stop it. You'll have to then give him what he wants,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So hopefully he stays healthy, because Khabib in his younger days, he has a hard time staying healthy up until fights, and we'll see what happens, but I don't expect him to lose. That grapple heavy style those Dagestanis come in with is ridiculous, and I'm not a fan, but I can't say it's not effective either. So
Travis, I think you're muted.
You said it right, Rob. The RDA fight was the fight to make. Also, Paul Felder's right there. Islam is ranked 10th. Actually tied for ranked 10th right now on the UFC website. Don't know what that means exactly. Or what about Gregor Gillespie? I know he just fought, but that would be interesting, because two grapple heavy, Islam goes for those takedowns. What happens if he ends up on bottom? But that's the fight we have now. He's unranked. So it's kind of, I hope that Islam can get a ranked opponent after this. I'm going to go ahead and guess that Islam opens as a minus 400 favorite, maybe even 500. This is kind of dumb, but this is Khabib's prodigy. And since Khabib's gone, this is what we got. All right, so last fight announcement. Mateusz Gamrot will fight Jeremy Stevens. A lot of people don't remember who Gamrot is. He fought Yair Rodriguez, had that eye poke. And he's lost. So he's lost to Jose Aldo, Zabit, Yair, and Cater. And so he's on a 4-fight losing streak, but those are all the top people in the division. He's beat Duho Choi and Josh Emmett. So this is going to be interesting because Jeremy Stevens can crack, and he's always dangerous. Monique, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this fight?
I'm actually not a Jeremy Stevens fan. I'm just gonna put that out there, anyways.
Good.
Because I'm not a fan of like his. I get it. He can hit hard, and he's a brawler and stuff, and he's very entertaining. And everybody pretty much likes him, except like for me. But I think that Garamond like losing to the top 5, but that's the same thing as Stevens too. Like Stevens hasn't had much success with the top 5 in that division as well. So, it's going to be a close fight. Like I said, I'm not really a big fan of Jeremy Stevens, but I don't know too much about Garamond's style to judge who I think is going to win this fight personally.
Yeah, and let me jump in real quick. Jeremy Stevens is the type of dude who, if the ref didn't pull off, he might punch the guy until he killed him. Like, he just enjoys hurting people. And there's different kind of fighters in this sport. You've got your competitors, like a Wonder Boy. You've got your fighters, people who just love to fight, like maybe a Matt, the Immortal Brown. And then you got people that like to just straight up hurt people, and that is Jeremy Stevens. And those kind of guys, for all that he's given to people, he's gotten it back too. So, Rob, what do you think about this one?
I don't like Jeremy Stevens. Just like Monique. I don't know. He's always rubbed me wrong, and I've been watching him since he was Lil Heathen, and he's just been always came out to crack, always came out to brawl. Real aggressive guy. But like you said, he's just real, I don't want to say vindictive, but he's just real mean, if that makes sense, in a way where it's not enjoyable. That being said, I don't know enough about Gamrot either to really say anything. It sounds like, who's older? I'm assuming Jeremy Stevens is the older one here, right?
He's older in fight years. So Gamrot's 30. Stevens is 34.
Gamrot's like 30, you said.
1 second.
I'm gonna do my best casual, just breakdown right now because I'm going off straight up. Who's on the potential on the rise? He's 30. Yeah. I'm gonna go Gamrot here. He's younger. They're both on a losing streak, but it's against the top of the divisions, respectively. Jeremy Stevens, I just don't like him, and I just can't pick him to win.
Okay, I have to make a correction here. I was on Jeremy Stevens. He's on the 4-fight losing streak. He's the one that had the eye poke in Mexico with Yair Rodriguez.
Got it. Okay.
As I was saying it, I was like, didn't Jeremy Stevens do the same thing? He last beat Scott Holtzman, hot sauce, punch and ground and pound. So he knocked him down and then, okay. And then he lost his fight before that. So just to correct the record, now that I've royally screwed everything up. Sorry, guys. I would have had these links more prepared, except for, so I was doing a job at someone's house today, and I left the cover to the attic open. Even though I'm going back there tomorrow, she wanted me to drive all the way back over there and put the cover on. Since I'm a nice guy, I did it. So I lost about 20 minutes of getting my links prepared that I would have normally had. So there's my excuse for screwing that one up. Not a lot of people know this, but Gary Tonin beat this dude in a Matisse Gamrot in a grappling competition.
Interesting.
Yes.
Gamrot is technically sound enough to be in a grappling match with Gary Tonin.
Yeah, and the 2019 ADCC Worlds.
I like this even more now for Gamrot because Jeremy Stevens has dog shit grappling.
Yep.
Say it kindly.
Choke this motherfucker out.
There you go.
Hopefully. Yep.
Okay, and now we've got some Twitter beef.
Oh yeah.
Well, this one is cuts a little bit deeper than just Twitter. We are going to focus on the part of the globe that is Dagestan and Chechnya. And this beef happened on Instagram between Khabib and Khamzat Chimaev. This gets pretty dark where this one goes. Rob has a little more insight. I'm going to cue the actual quotes up, and maybe Rob can give us a little history of what's going on here.
Yeah, just a little backstory. Chechnya has been a nation since the 90s. They've had a few wars, civil wars. They fought for their independence against Russia, and it's just been a war-torn area for the last 30 years, so to speak. And right now their president or their leader, I don't know what you want to call him. His name is, oh God, starts with an R. His last name is Kadayev. I don't know how to pronounce
Kadyrov.
Kadayev. How is it?
Kadyrov.
Kadyrov. Ramzan or whatever his name is, Kadyrov. And he is the son of its former president who was assassinated in 2004. He became a president in 2007. And he's been, so to speak, a pretty bad guy. I mean, various human rights violations against his people. There's different accusations of different abuses, which I won't get into, but they're there.
Well, I'll say that he's been accused of executing gay people. So there's that.
There's been that. And the way they disguise that is they have their way of disguising that in a way where it doesn't make them look at bad. But when you really dig into it, it just seems like persecution.
No, they tripped and fell off of a roof or something, right? Yeah.
Sure. Or they'll do things where they'll say the person is like a pedophile or one of those kind of things, which will then drum up support for then arresting the person, which then leads to the tortures and abuses afterwards. So there's that. And Khamzat Chimaev is from Chechnya. He fled Chechnya, I believe he was 19, to go to Sweden with his family, and then he's recently just got back to Chechnya since getting famous, essentially, with his run in the UFC. And this has led to Kadyrov, treating him well, getting him good papers, bringing him back to Chechnya, gifting him cars, which Khamzat just destroyed one of the cars he was gifted, I believe, in April. But anyways, treating him well. And Kadayev has in the past treated Khabib very well. He's invited him to dinners, things like that. And they've all commingled relatively peacefully. And recently Kadayev was on Instagram Live, where someone asked him about Khabib, and to which he responded relatively negatively, in which he was saying that Khabib's, was as a UFC product, which, he got the easy path to the belt. They built him up, if he wanted to fight one of his Chechnyan fighters from his gym that he has out there, Khabib would be beaten and yada, yada, yada. It's real. It seems like an overnight thing. And, Khamzat piggybacked on this when he was asked some questions about it, to which he responded that, he would tear Khabib up, and, if Kadayev, asked him to, and such forth. Khabib has said nothing from what I understand. His cousin, who's a welterweight in the UFC division, I think his name is, I'm going to forget. Abu
Bakr.
Abu Bakr, that guy. He, though, responded to which he was,
Well, I will quote his comment here. Khamzat, I see you changed your clothes quickly. After moving to Sweden and writing a complaint of your own Chechnyan Republic that you are being harassed there, you received documents for a good life in Sweden, but now gaining glory, I look changed. Now you're back and living in Chechnya, and all is well with you. I am happy for you. Don't lose that comfort zone. Not long ago in America, you sat and ate with us at the same table, worked out at the same hall, went to the mosque together, and called us brothers. And now you write that you're going to tear someone up? Yes, I agree. Everyone has the right to express their opinion, but be careful what you say. So a lot of people don't know, or maybe don't remember, but when Connor started coming out with all this stuff about Khabib hanging out with Kadyrov at the press conference, that's what really pissed Khabib off. And then that's what got him so mad. And here's the other thing is that if you get an invite from a president of Chechnya, you have to take it. If you're in that region, if you don't, not taking that invitation is a sign of crazy disrespect, and bad things can happen. I'm not going to act like I'm the expert of what goes on in there, but the lives that they live, they're very different than probably anybody who's going to be listening to this podcast. So you got to take that in perspective too. But they operate under different rule set.
I know they do, and which is why I think we're here now, because you just got to tell the king once no, and before the king is your enemy, right? So again, he went to the dinners with Kadyrov and stuff like that, and at the end of the day, though, Khabib is not from Chechnya; he's from Dagestan, which is its own little republic, and he's not. There's a term I've been seeing on Twitter used to describe Khabib, and I believe I hope I don't butcher it, but I think it's Uman or something along those lines, which implies that he's not nationalistically aligned to Dagestan, like the way like Chechnyans or like Chechnyan Muslims are nationalistically aligned to Chechnya, but he's, the word I believe, again, if I'm remembering it correctly, it describes somebody who is beholden to Islam as a whole, to the most. He's a ally to all Muslims, not just Chechnyan Muslims like Kadyrov and Hamzat, but all Muslims throughout the world, which makes him more of a unifying aspect, as opposed to that divisive one over there in Chechnya. So he probably just humored Kadyrov to begin with, initially, and then, like you said, Connor pointing those things out probably pissed him off, because on from his moral compass, it's like, no, I'm not that guy. I don't believe what he believes, and you're going to point me in with him.
Well, he called out. He kind of got called out because Kadyrov is well known for being a piece of shit, and then Khabib dines with him. It's kind of, and they have a war going on between Dagestan and Chechnya. So for Khabib to go over there and I don't understand how all those politics work. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But it's big time beef. This goes far beyond the octagon, but it's still beef.
Well, I'll say it's just really deeply cultural at the end of the day. This area has been highly volatile for the last,
war torn.
Throughout history. You got to think about it. Those are the steppes right there, and those steppes were once populated by steppe tribesmen. Hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago was the Mongols and the Huns. Before them, you had the Scythians, all that back there is just it's just violence over there. And you have these deep cultural divides, and then now you have religion that gets mixed in with it. So it's like you said, it's a whole other ballgame compared to what we have here in the States. And the implications for it are a lot broader and, than what we have to face here for certain things.
Correct.
I just hope we don't have a civil war with the neckbeards, where you're at, weigh-ins, and you have Chechnyans and Dagestanis and Georgians and everybody just fist fighting in the back.
Yeah, that would not be fun.
Everyone's just hitting the sambo rolls on everybody.
Monique, do you have anything to say about this?
Well, the beef, I know a little bit about it. Thank you, Rob, for, giving me some of the background.
Yeah, you did good, Rob.
Yeah, that was really good. I think that, with the president, I guess, kind of turning his back on Khabib and saying that, he had the easy road to the UFC belt and yada, yada, yada. I think, it shouldn't be a surprise, because he's such, the reputation of this guy being, quote unquote, a bad guy or something like that, then, it doesn't really surprise me at this point. And like you said, those two nations are at war. And I don't know too much about the politics of it, but it makes sense to me. It doesn't really surprise me why he would just turn his back on Khabib, even though they've had dinners and stuff like that. So, it is what it is. And that's all I can comment right now. I think just being a casual, just hearing about this beef right now.
Cool. Well, now let's get to the reason why we are all here. for your UFC 262 breakdown. UFC 262 went down in Houston, Texas, and it was kind of bananas. There's a bunch of fights in the stands, which is not cool. I'm pretty sure it was sold out, at least to as much as they could. We have a new champion now after Khabib vacated his title. Charles Oliveira is your lightweight champion. Quick recap on the bets. Not so good. I believe I gave out Burgos, Vivi, Dariush, and Chandler on the podcast. If you add all those up, it's minus 2.5 units. So we're going to go with that. I was at 0. So now my year to date will be for the podcast minus 2.5 units. Okay, let's start at the top. Michael Chandler with the biggest blown opportunity I've seen in a very long time. I will go first on this one. Thank you very much. Michael Chandler drops Charlie Olives pretty bad. And so in the first round, after getting his back taken, and I think the big victory there was getting his back taken, but able to reverse that was a big, clear sign for me for his confidence. They get back up to the feet, and Chandler is outgunning him on the feet in the first round. Drops him with some slick head movement. Charles Oliveira is able to avoid the shot that will send him to the land of wind and ghosts. But then what does Michael Chandler do? He follows him to the ground, and I'm still flabbergasted as why. I only had 1 unit bet as posted, but I had a lot more money on him than that because, this is my entertainment. I don't use drugs or alcohol anymore, so this is what my entertainment is. And I was out of my seat in that first round, I was like, okay, yes, that's it. And then I'm like, no, what is he doing? He's on the ground. He's in the guard. Where he was landing some good blows, but not the kind that's it's going to, I guess, put him out. And that fight could have been stopped in the first round too. Some people might disagree, but it could have been. I've seen fights stop for less. The second round starts, and I think Chandler was just thinking, all I need to do is hit him with 1 or 2, and that's going to be the fight. Well, he throws a left hook, and Rob, I want to get a little more technical analysis. He throws a left hook, stays in the pocket, doesn't bring his right arm up to block, and Charles Oliveira, with the left hook of his own, drops him. And I don't think Michael Chandler saw the punch that floored him. Actually, before we take up all of the bandwidth, Monique, why don't you jump in with your opinion on what happened here? Because Rob likes to carry on a little long sometimes. So he might say what's on your mind. What did you think about this fight, and who was your pick going into it?
My pick was also your pick. I actually had Chandler winning this. I'm a huge fan of, people that are wrestle heavy and that are huge knockout artists, just like Michael Chandler had the power to do that. And I was surprised. I thought that he literally had him in the first round, but like you said, why did he follow up on the going to the ground with him? That wasn't smart at all. But I thought that fight was going to be stopped, to be honest with you, just like probably how you thought as well. But I was like, whoa, okay. He's going to the ground with him. Obviously the blows were not that significant to begin with, and that first round really shocked me. But at the same time, it showed how much adversity Charles Olives can actually withstand. And so the second round was really it wasn't a surprise to me. It was a surprise in terms of that he finished him with the TKO, because usually I know him to be such a submission artist, that's exactly like if Charles Olives was gonna win, he was just going to. I thought he was gonna win by submission. So, kudos to him. I was very happy that Charles Olives won because I actually wanted him to win, even though my pick was Chandler. So that's what I thought of the fight.
Yeah. And to his credit, Charles Oliveira walked through a couple of different fires. I think a couple more of those fires and he might have just totaled up like he's done before. Because once a quitter, always a quitter. I was wrong about that. He didn't quit that time, at least. Rob, what did you see happen there, especially in that final sequence?
Well, again, I have to put a disclaimer out before we go any farther. I only watched fully the Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler fight. I couldn't find a stream to work until Tony Ferguson, and I found it just in time. That being said,
DM me next time.
Oh, my man. Okay, so main event. I thought Chandler was going to win the fight in the first round, just how I thought he should have. Hit him with a couple overhand. Comes in, throws the power punch, catches Charlie Olives, with his guard kind of long out, catches him on the temple, drops him, and a lot like Dan Hooker, right? Just on top of him, swarming him. And they didn't stop it. And I was like, why? Why wouldn't you stop it? Why? But if you watch it again, Charlie, while he was hurt, was never really out. He was doing that weird Nick Diaz, Paul Daly, like my head's on the ground, you can't hit it kind of deal. And as to why I think Chandler followed him onto the ground, if you go to the very beginning of the round, right, Charlie Olives got him to the ground with the leg kick, kicked him in the leg, he fell down, and then that's where the fight starts, right? A part of me thinks his leg might have still been compromised. Because if you go, even when you go into the second round, his footwork is not as steady. And when he's coming in with his punches and, he throws his right and Charlie's able to just stay in line and hit him with that left hook and just, crack him the way he did. Chandler throws his left, and then Charlie throws his left, his check left. Like his feet just weren't where they should have been when he got hot.
Neither were his hands. His hands were down here.
The hands, the hand thing isn't as nearly as egregious to me, especially when Chandler fights the way he's always fought, which is kind of relaxed, comfortable, real explosive. His hands aren't super low, but they're not super high either, typically.
True.
But it's just, it is what it is. Charlie Olives, man, for everything, every knock against him. Again, been watching him his entire career over there in the UFC, and I never thought I'd say he was a champion. I never thought I'd be sitting here talking about him winning the belt. Just because, I believe his first 20 fights in the UFC, he went 10-8-1. So he was always one of those kind of guys where he was either going to win or he was going to lose. He was going to give you a good fight, but you didn't expect much out of him. And here he is today. His improvement since then to now, his striking is so crisp and technical. His ability to stay in line with whoever he's fighting, whatever the angle they're cutting or whatever they're doing, he stays in line in a way which a lot of guys don't do or can't do, it seems like. And that's played dividends. When he fought Tony Ferguson, that's what helped him set up a lot of his takedowns. A lot of, what led him to that, win was through his ability to outstrike Tony Ferguson, which Tony Ferguson didn't think he could do. Going to Chandler, same thing. He has his ground game. He doesn't have to worry about takedowns. He doesn't have to worry about none of that shit because he's comfortable in his own ground game. So he can just worry about outstriking Chandler, to which he eventually did and broke my heart with.
Yeah, something to be said about those leg kicks.
They're tricky when you throw them right and you do them correctly. You have great success. But
Chandler's also lost via leg kicks before to Brent Primus in Bellator.
Yes, he has.
So maybe some flashbacks of that one.
Maybe, but on the leg kick thing real quick, I think there's a real craze right now with the calf kicks. And every time you see one, work successfully, you get a bunch of guys go.
Joe Rogan, his leg is gone. Joe Rogan, every time someone gets leg kicked, his leg is gone.
They're gone.
That leg is gone. He's having trouble with that leg.
And it's so funny how very often it really is gone. But no, like my biggest thing though is there's a big craze with them right now, and everyone loves them. And because they love them, they go to do them, but they don't condition their shins properly before they go do them. And you see people breaking their shins, now are hurting themselves. Like there was another guy, not in a UFC fight, in a smaller promotion, right after Chris Weidman broke his leg. A couple of days ago, I saw the video of him kicking in his shit, just snapping in half. Like and that's because motherfuckers don't know how to. They don't condition their shins correctly, and they throw these low leg kicks. Not realizing that if you miss and you mess up, you're going to hit their shin or their knee, and typically speaking, you lose that battle 100% of the time.
Yeah.
If you I was rewatching Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis the other day, and in the second round, Anthony Pettis comes out, throws a leg kick. Nate checks it right there on the shin, and that's the kick that breaks Anthony Pettis' foot. So
the Thais don't have that problem.
They don't, because they don't aim for calves. They aim for the thigh. They bring it up, and they also know how to throw their kicks, a little bit better, and they condition their shins properly. But they're not aiming for calves because of that risk of hitting the knee or the shin and blowing your shit up. Yeah,
risk reward. So now moving forward, even though Dana White hasn't came out and said it, it's probably going to be the winner of Dustin versus Conor. If Conor wants to stay down at 155, but he's talking about going up to 170. I think they're trying to do a Jorge Masvidal versus Conor personally for the BMF belt. Because if Conor can't fight for a lightweight belt, he can't fight for a welterweight belt, what belt can they put in front of him? The BMF belt.
I mean, it just depends if Conor wins or not, or loses. If he loses, then sure, that makes sense. But
I'm starting to think he's going to lose now. I know I came out and said that I thought Conor's going to win. I'm going back and forth on that fight. Monica, how do you think this all shakes out? Who is champ at the end of the year? Or Monique, Jesus Christ. I said Monica. I did it.
No worries. I still think, between Dustin versus Conor, I had my sights on Conor winning originally, just because I think the first fight, if it wasn't for those leg kicks, like we were talking about leg kicks before, I just think that Conor would have won. But I'd like Dustin to win personally. I would love to see Dustin versus Charles Olives. That would be an amazing matchup in my opinion. I'm not a really big fan of Conor McGregor. I don't know why I'm not a big fan of the Conor versus Charles Olives fight. Don't know why. Just doesn't sit.
I think that's a fight for Charles Oliveira to win.
Yeah.
Especially if it gets to the ground.
And then Dustin and Charlie Olives is a rematch. Charlie Olives already has a W over him.
Oh, well, yeah. Was that featherweight?
I believe so, yes.
How did either of those two men ever make 145?
No, man.
Yeah, Charlie Olives is a tall dude making 145.
Okay, well, we'll see how this lightweight thing shakes out. We've got a champ now. Bye, Felicia, to Khabib. Let's see if Khamzat could come in here, or Khamzat. Islam Makhachev, but we'll go back down the line, keeping it in the lightweight division. Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush defeats Tony Ferguson by unanimous decision. Who wants to go first?
I'm gonna hop on this one first. It was just pain watching it, and a part of me was mad at Beneil Dariush, especially in the third round. Like when they're in that north-south position, the way they were in for as long as they were in, I was just angry. Like, give the man a shot. Stand up and bang with him. Let him fight the man.
Let me bang, bro.
But then you look at the performance overall, and it was just, I don't know how else to say it, but it was a daddy performance right there. That was somebody saying, "Come here, son." Just literally everything that Tony Ferguson said in the press conference that he was going to do to Dariush in turn did it to him. Ferguson was like, "I'm going to slam you on your head." You got slammed in the third round. He was talking about how he was going to control him on the ground and everything. He got controlled on the ground. Everything, it was just the opposite. And Dariush just, to me, screams New Age Tony with a slightly less flair for the weird. But his post-fight press, his post-fight comments, though, were still pretty goddamn weird. And at the end of the day, I was like, that made me like him more than anything else. Like when he just came in, it was like, "Oh, you're weird like this. Let's show I could fuck with you." You know, I
Yeah.
can fuck with this.
There's a running theme of oppressive governments going on in the show right now. But I digress. Monique, what do you think about this one?
Okay, this made me cry because like I'm a huge Tony Ferguson fan.
Oh,
Time okay, I did pick Belinda Dariush to win only because I feel like Tony Ferguson's career is just going downhill. Ever since the Gaethje fight, he hasn't looked the same, honestly. And like obviously kudos to Tony before taking the Gaethje fight. A lot of people said he should have waited till Khabib was better, yada yada yada. But at the same time, like, you know, kudos to him to never turn down a fight. Tony Ferguson literally did nothing in that fight. He literally did nothing to scream anything to defend him. So I can't defend his performance whatsoever. But Neil Dariush obviously showing how great his grappling skills are. It wasn't the most entertaining fight, but at the same time, like he did the job and he got the job done against someone who's in the ranked top 5, I believe,
Yeah.
in the lightweight division. So like he got that job done, and I'm a huge fan of Beneil Dariush. I'm a huge fan of Tony Ferguson. So it was kind of a bittersweet moment for me. But you know, at the end of the day, like Beneil Dariush just really showed like, you know, how versatile he is, and Tony Ferguson just did nothing for me in that fight. So that's what I thought of it.
yeah, he landed. So let's just look at the numbers real quick. 37 total strikes to Dariush's 76. Dariush got 3 out of 6 takedowns, and his control time was 12 minutes and 15 seconds. So every time he got a takedown, the round was pretty much over. And it's just kind of curious because Ferguson comes from a wrestling background and he can't get up off the bottom anymore. And Monique, I like what you said about the Justin Gaethje fight, even though I don't like it. I don't personally like it, but I like the accuracy of your comment that, you know, he landed that hook on Justin Gaethje at the end of the first round, and a lot of people thought it might be, you know, he was super wobbled, but then Justin goes back to his corner. They tell him, you know, they make some adjustments, and he hasn't looked right since that fight. The amount of damage that he took in that fight is career altering, no matter how you look at it, even for someone like Tony Ferguson. And you are correct too. He didn't have to take that fight. He probably shouldn't have taken that fight. Sometimes being a company man is not good for your career, but he also does things like, oh, I'm going to cut weight because I said I was going to cut weight. You know, maybe his ego is getting it in the way of that too. He could have waited and got his title shot. And for people that say Tony Ferguson never held a belt, well, that's kind of disrespectful to him. And even Tony is being disrespectful to himself because he won the damn interim title and he was the best lightweight on the planet for a given amount of time, you know, even if Khabib wasn't there. So Dariush, now, you know, we're sitting here spending the whole time talking about Tony Ferguson because we love him so much, but Dariush did what he had to do to win. This wasn't the kind of performance that's going to get him a title shot, though. And I'm not even sure if Dariush is concerned about that. He seems to be an odd duck. Like he's just has his own beat that he's marching to. What do we do with Dariush next? Who do we want to see him fight? Anybody have any ideas on that
I
one?
want to see him fight Justin Gaethje.
Oh, I like that.
I want to see.
You want to see him get knocked out?
No, I want to see Dariush take Gaethje into those deep waters and drag him down, drown him. Because I don't think Dariush is going to sit there and try and strike with Gaethje. I think he'll pick his shots when he can, but his ultimate game there is just going to grapple fuck him and just, you know, and do what he did to Tony Ferguson in the most violent way possible. Because I think that after the first round, Dariush realized where he was at. And I think he took his foot off the pedal and really just won the fight instead of just beating the shit out of Tony. So, you know, in a kind of weird, like, I respect you enough for who you are to not just, you know, not beat you up, but I'm not going to destroy your knee in this heel hook when like he let go of that heel hook. He let go of that motherfucker. Like he had that heel hook on there and he had it turned over. And Tony didn't just kick his hands off. He let it go. he heard
It's like
it
break
pop,
my
and
shit.
Tony was about to let his knee get destroyed right there, and it probably did. He for sure tore some things. There, you said he heard it pop at least 4 times.
Yeah.
So, if now had Dariush disliked Tony, had any animosity towards Tony or anything like that, I can definitely see him really wrenching that heel over, and just blowing his knee to shreds. That was, I believe, the leg that he tore his PCL on too.
Yep. And Jeremy Stevens would have taken that shit and threw it over his back and went home with it.
Exactly. Paul who's smart? Paul Harris, right?
Oh man, forget about it.
And just on that note, like, you go again, the third round, as much as I was mad at Dariush for just sitting in that top position the way he did, I prefer that to him advancing his position to beat the shit out of Tony. I prefer that to seeing Tony just get punched in the face over and over again. So I think he gave Tony the mercy loss, like, hey, you're going to catch this L, but I'm not going to beat the shit out of you and take years off your life like Justin did. Which is also why I want to see Dariush fight Justin.
Well, I think what they're going to do is Michael Chandler versus Gaethje. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen.
I hope they don't, because I want to see them both kind of. I want to.
I know that's a bad fight for Michael Chandler because he likes to get hit, and Justin Gaethje is a slick assassin.
I think that fight is going to be a lot like Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje.
If you think about it, he's a different fighter now.
True.
Than the Eddie Alvarez fight.
Very true. But he gets hit too, and Chandler's a very explosive, very fast man. Again, reminds me of a new age Sean Shirk in a lot of ways, with his speed and his explosiveness with his power.
Well, I hope they might do RDA. If Beneil Dariush is going to punch up, it's either Dan Hooker or RDA, Michael Chandler, or Justin Gaethje, number 2. But I don't think Justin Gaethje would take that fight. What the hell is he doing anyways? But yeah. Okay, let's anything else to add before we get to the events?
No, I just hope to God that Tony, he's not going to ever see this or listen to this, but if he ever were to just sit down and have a come to Jesus moment, I need him to just realize, like, it's time.
Yeah, he's lost 3 in a row, and the Gaethje fight changed him, I believe.
I think he lost this part of himself in that fight, and I think you can see it. You watch him, from the Pettis fight to now, like, you just put him just side by side. It's like he looks like a shell of himself in there.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen his Instagram? There was like a post that he made, and then there was like a little cartoon of this guy saying he was contemplating whether to give up or retire. So if you look at that maybe he's thinking about retiring very soon.
Or go to PFL and win $1 million.
Or that.
Or that. Yeah.
It's a nice way to end a career.
I'm actually me and his aunt follow each other on Twitter.
Interesting.
Very much thank Dodgers Twitter for that relationship hook up there. But but yeah, it's funny because every now and then, I'll get a little bit, from her on something. And like after the Gaethje fight, he really thought going into that fight that he could just outbox Gaethje. That was really his thought. So he didn't worry about, takedowns, training wrestling, none of that. He thought I could just box his head off. And when that turned out not to be the case, and he had no, resort to other means, I guess in her words, that he just wasn't ready for the other things that he had to do.
Interesting. That's cool that you guys talk. Okay, let's move on down the card to not as interesting results. Matt Schnell loses to Bontarine. I think now is a good time to talk about the judging that went on in Texas, and just the judging the past couple of events has been horrendous.
Yeah.
30-20. I don't believe there is a 30-27. Probably 29-28 was a more appropriate score. Matt Schnell, he's got the size and the length for that weight class. I just don't. He should have been more active if he wanted to win that fight, and he was. He needed more volume, but he was trying to counter strike. None of it was really working. Anybody got something to say about this one?
Yeah,
Nope.
I'll
Oh,
Go ahead, Monique.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I didn't know why this fight was on the main card because it didn't
Yeah.
make me. That's number one. Number two, like Matt Schnell, even though his striking has gotten so much better, he's not as aggressive as I would have liked him to be, and that's one of the reasons why he lost. What's called Bonatorin, I think that's his last name. He actually missed weight by a pound, so Matt Schnell already gets 20% of his purse, so. But he was the more aggressive fighter. His strikes were more accurate, and he just did more. And I just at the same time, like I said, I didn't know why this fight was on the main card. It just really I think you could hear from the crowd too that they didn't like this fight as well. So that's what I thought of it.
Yeah, you've got two flyweights fighting a bantamweight on a huge UFC pay-per-view main card. Okay. Rob.
were there any? Again, I have only watched the Tony Ferguson, the main event, Mr. Chandler, breaking my heart. But was the reason for these two guys being on the main card because another fight fell out potentially?
Yes, Edmund Shabazian versus Jack Hermanson.
That was the fight, and they're fighting here in a month, aren't they, or so?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah, it was rebooked. It has not actually. I'm glad you brought that up. It has not been rebooked yet, but they're targeting late July, I think.
Okay. So that would probably make sense why they're there. I mean, they weren't supposed to be there, but you do what you got to do as a promoter. As far as judging has gotten worse and worse, and it's a mixed bag. I think you got judges trying to utilize this new scoring criteria and getting more comfortable with it when they shouldn't be. And you have old judges that are not using the new scoring criteria. So you have, again, skewed scorecards because of that. You get this bad judging in general.
I think they should do open scoring just so the fighters know.
You used to see that a lot in K1 back in the day. Sorry to cut you off, but you used to see that a lot in K1 and then other kickboxing and stuff back in the day. And like the Grand Prix, the K1 World Grand Prix used to do that. And it was, I don't know how I felt about it because
I think they should try it. At this point, they need to try something different. They need to do something.
I don't know. I just think having, this is a whole rant right here on its own, but ultimately right now you have a bunch of judges who should not be judges. I mean, whatever they did to get their accreditation obviously meant nothing because they're failing in their jobs. And the problem right now is you don't have anybody to replace them with. Like if they had people to replace them with, then sure, it'd probably be easier to fire a bad judge when it came time to. But just like the umpires in baseball, if you don't have anybody to replace these bad umpires with, then you can't fire the bad umpires. So this requires, old, former competitors, people who love the sport, want to see change, having to go to their local commissions and taking the tests required and getting the licenses.
Yeah, but then people have bias towards their camps or the state or their.
Well, that's the point about when you do these things. Like anybody who wants to go judge, typically, like they're not somebody who. I'm using general terms here, but like if I want to go judge a fight, I'm not going there because I have a bone, a dog in the fight. You know what I mean? Like it's like I'm here to be objective and judge the fight as it is because I love the sport and I want to see it grow. That's why people get into refereeing. A lot of people who are former competitors who want to stay involved in some way, and that's usually the way judging a referee. And
okay,
you get a lot of this in Muay Thai. Oh yeah.
So we're gonna keep it moving. Chukagian defeats Vivian Arroyo. I didn't see a 30-27 on that one either. I thought Vivi was landing some good strikes too. Catlin is how it's pronounced. She was landing more often, but I thought Vivi was doing better. Monique, you have anything to say about this one?
Yeah, it really surprised me. It surprised me that Vivi, she got really tired after grappling Chukagian on the ground. Like, it just showed that her striking wasn't as crisp as it was in the first round. Like obviously I don't see the 30-27 because I see the first round going to Vivi personally. But yeah, no, she got really tired, which was really unfortunate because I really like seeing her striking, and Shukagian just took advantage of that with her volume striking. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Shukagian. I don't think she's that exciting of a fighter. She doesn't usually go for any finishes or anything like that, or she tried to late in the second round when Vivi was just really, really tired. But at the end of the day, like, you know, she won and she got the job done. So, you know, kudos to Shukagian and all her likes on Twitter. That was
Oh my Lord.
You got there before I did.
If there's one thing to be said about this fight, it's Catlin's Twitter. Just go check it out. Check out the likes. Actually, don't. You don't. You don't
we don't
need
need to do that.
someone hacked her account and there's nothing but porn on her likes. So that's what you get. It's I don't know. I guess it's a pretty cool spoof. Sometimes the internet happens. All right, we'll go to a much more exciting fight, in my opinion, and should have been higher up in the card. Shane Burgos defeats Edson Barboza in one of the weirdest knockouts we've seen. The third round comes out, and Barboza lands a 1-2. Didn't look like it was that significant at all, and it looked like Shane might have stunned him for a second, and like he looked like he got his wits back about him, and then it just, you can tell he just took a couple steps backwards and he was fading to black. It was almost like a delayed reaction, like a body shot. He fell over, and not only did he go from like fully lucid and conscious to just completely out with his leg shaking, and Barboza didn't even touch him. Well, I think he landed, but he was already on his way to that. That was interesting. It looked like a pretty even fight heading into it, but Barboza was ahead on the scorecards if you looked at it, and he was leading in the striking department. I thought Burgos was doing well. I had bet him. He could have been doing a little better, though. Monique, since you saw this, what did you what do you think about it?
Yeah, no, I had Burgos going into this fight too, just because Barbosa, I didn't know which Barbosa was going to arrive, and
Good point. Good point.
Right? So that's the reason why I picked Burgos. But man, did Barbosa prove me wrong? Like his kicks, especially, were amazing. Like those were like some of the fastest kicks I've ever seen in my life. You know, really great counter striking. Like whenever Burgos tried to land in his boxing style, you see Barbosa just counter him, and then like he landed a couple of times where Burgos was wobbling, you know, and that was really impressive. So I'm excited to see Barbosa stay in. He said he's going to stay in the featherweight division. But
yes, and he wants to fight soon.
Yeah, so, I'm down for it. You know, like if he fights like this, I'm back on the Barbosa train. That's for sure.
Josh Emmett is sitting at 6. So I don't think they've adjusted the rankings yet. Barboza's 13th. Burgos is 9. So you imagine Barboza is going to be above or at 9. And then above him would be Dan Ige. That would be a rematch. Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett. Either of those two I'd be fine with. Korean Zombie. Does he have a dance partner right now?
I think he does. I think so. I thought he was fighting against Ige for some reason.
Yes, you're all correct. Me and Quick Pick Mitch called that one actually on an episode. Okay. Who do you want to see him fight next, Rob?
Oh, that's a tough one. Giga, I believe they're in the class, aren't they?
Ooh, yeah, they are.
Yeah, but he's not going to fight someone below him. But that would be a sick fight. Actually, Giga is ranked 10th right now.
Exactly. So it's one of those ones where, you know, if Barboza goes to 9 or whatever, you know, or maybe it's a fight to see who's number 10. that fight screams fun to me because Barboza is an extremely explosive, powerful, kickboxer. I mean, his kicks, like his switch kick is so fast and lovely.
So
His leg kicks are brutal and I mean, everything about him is just fast twitch muscle fiber. And then
Yeah.
Giga is just that fucking ultimate high level technique, which I love. So it's that fight screams fun. That screams fun.
And Barboza's on Twitter saying he wants to fight now. So let's book that one.
Wants to fight.
Giga wants to fight now too.
Yep.
Boom.
I did see something on. Real quick, just real fast. I saw something on Twitter where someone was posing the thought that Burgos, due to the amount of damage taken in the fight, when he took that punch, he just said, he said consciously to himself, "I just can't do this no more. I need to, end it." Like that was the narrative that was like I was seeing kind of play out. Like he just had to stop. He couldn't do it anymore. And I kind of wanted to say that's bullshit.
Yeah, he's an animal.
Reaction, but although his reaction was delayed, that's not uncommon from head trauma. Like it happens in football a lot, where you'll get a guy run through the line or whatever, get hit in the head, go a few steps, and the next thing you know, they're just done. They're out. So that is a lot more common than people seem to think. And I just want to put it out there that Burgos, for the last thing I can see that man doing is saying to himself, "I need to quit because it's too hard."
Yeah, that's a bad take. Whoever you are, you have a bad take.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Real quickly, Jacare Souza versus Muniz. I pick and I gave out Muniz on the podcast. I'm not sure between my Twitter picks and last week what I said on the show, but yeah, that was super nasty. So the armbar that he got on him was not your normal straight armbar. They did this thing where they were scrambling. Muniz was on the bottom and he trapped his arm, threw his legs up, and actually broke his arm up higher above the elbow. And Jacare is going to have surgery. Yeah, I just think it might be time for Jacare to go to PFL or something. Monique, what do you think? Who was your pick for this one, and what do you think about the fight?
Yeah, no, I definitely think Muniz to win. Just because, like you said, I didn't know which Jacare was gonna come in and show up, and so his last performance, like I think it was against Kevin Holland, like he didn't do so well as well, and that was just really unfortunate because you think on the ground that he would dominate, and for Muniz to submit someone like Jacare Souza, who's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that was just mind-blowing to me.
World champion.
Yeah.
Multiple time world champion.
Exactly. Yeah. So for that to happen, you just know that it's time to go and go to another promotion, right? So yeah, I mean that was really impressive by Muniz. That was gross, by the way, that snap of the arm. That was nasty. If anyone heard it pop, it was even with the fans you could hear it pop.
Yeah.
That's how, imagine without the fans and you hear that pop by itself, that'd be so gross. But other than that, congratulations to Muniz. And obviously, if I was to submit Jacare Souza, I'd be very proud of myself. That's just, I'm just saying.
Yeah, probably sounded like a judge's gavel if there was no people in the audience. Rob, real quick, what do you think?
This just makes me sad. This whole fight card was pain for old fans, I think. I remember watching Jacare come up from way back in the day in the Dream organization over there in Japan, fighting Edgar Musasi, Jim Miller, and those guys over there. Just being the absolute killer he was on the ground. I mean, like Monique said, just from then to now, to see him be somebody that nobody ever wanted to go on the ground with ever for any amount of time ever, to now where guys are breaking his arms or knocking him out from the bottom, it's sad. And not sad in the sense like I pity the guy. It's just sad that Father Time, just remains undefeated. I'd like to see him try to come back and do one more fight. I don't know against two though. That's the hard part, especially in the middleweight division right now. I don't know.
It's young killers in that division.
There is some young killers in that division. So it's a Brad Tavares.
Okay.
You know, let's do that.
All
Let's
right.
go there.
Let's keep going down the line real quick. Last one we'll talk about Lando Banana. That's what I like. Lando Banana beats Mike Grundy by split decision. I thought it was clear for him. Anything to say about this one, Monique?
I think I like Lando's style. Like when it comes to his fight style, I really like it. But at the same time, he could have put on a better performance, in my opinion. He could have been a little bit more aggressive in the beginning, just because of Mike Grundy, in my opinion, was the aggressor, at least in the first round, and like with those takedowns and stuff like that. But it wasn't one of my favorite fights. I have to be honest with you, but at the same time, like Lando got the job done, and he could have I honestly thought he could have done better. But yeah.
Yeah. That was a hard one to call. Mike Grundy, that heavy wrestling style, which is weird coming from England. But going down the line, I think Andrea Lee, KGB, looked really good for Shevchenko. Jordan Wright looked really good against Pickett. Looking forward to seeing both of them fight again. And that will be it for our UFC 262 breakdown. Thank you guys so much for coming on. At the end of each show, we like to give shout outs. I will go first. I'm going to give a shout out to my son because I love him so much and we had a great weekend. TJ, this shout out is for you. Monique, do you have a shout out you'd like to give to somebody?
Yeah, no, shout outs to my co-host Alec Carr from Fights Unwrapped. His girlfriend just graduated her master's from Villanueva University. Oh yeah, congrats to her. So want to give a shout out to him and to Fights Unwrapped, and you can follow us on Twitter. So there you go.
Nice. Rob, you got anybody?
Yeah, off the top of my head, non-fight related, I like to shout out Dodger Yard over there on Twitter. They're a Dodger blog for the fans. So for anybody who's a fan of baseball and particularly the Dodgers, if you would like to write about your fan experience in a way that allows you to reach other fans, go give them a visit. They're a great place to just go share your thoughts on baseball, particularly the Dodgers.
Go Angels! Go Angels!
Oh no!
Go Angels!
We got Pujols.
Oh my God! I don't want to talk about that. Don't want to talk about that. And on that note, we are out. Everyone else, step your game up.